tweeting.
Yeah, I need to get a...
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here. We are live.
What is going on?
And we are watching the debate.
This is a casual stream. Very casual.
Good evening from the Health Education Campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments, with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment.
Yeah, well,
Wallace looks like have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic.
I decided?
I can assure you,
did?
none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you,
no emotions.
Can focus on what the candidates
This is a presidential debate, you fucks.
No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
Get your bingo cards out, boys.
Get them the hell out of here.
For those watching, we have bingo cards, and if they say certain phrases, we're gonna knock them off.
Here we go.
Bingo card,
Look at Trump with the Chad stance.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong, and where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate.
Hey, we won already?
The White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all. Top academic.
Trump says
all? Every way. Good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame.
Like Shell Oil.
So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. Even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school.
Less orange, but he's still popular.
We just won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American
You
people
can lick your ass
have a right
for.
to have a
Kill
say
'em
in who
both.
the Supreme Court
There we
nominee
go.
is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started.
Change the purple one to
Tens of thousands of people have already
what was the
voted.
question again?
And so the thing that should happen
Who cares?
is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way
It
the
will
American
benefit
people
my
get to
side and not
express
yours.
their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now,
Free question
what's
should
at
have been
stake
like
here is the president's
something
made it
along
clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he
asking
ran
or
on that,
restating
and
a
he's
different
been
question?
governing on that.
Is the
He's
free
in the
beat
Supreme
change the
Court
question?
right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip
Technically
20 million
dodged the
people
question.
from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court, and the justice, and I have nothing. I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person, but she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as
Runs
well.
over time.
Those pre-existing conditions,
You're going to
insurance
lose your
companies are gonna love
pre-existing
this.
conditions?
And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, during that
over each
period of
other.
time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to
That's-
socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number
Biden.
one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we
Socialist
expand
medicine.
Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with
We don't do
23
anything.
of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
Not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say. Your
That
party
is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I
All right, we're
in
definitely
fact,
getting
approved
the
of,
letting
what
Trump
I
talk
approved
over
of.
him one on that.
Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way,
Yeah.
the 200
that one
million,
out.
the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Wanna get
You
any
had
bingos yet?
308,000
Yep.
military
got
people
the-
dead
Really?
because you
the
couldn't
middle
provide
and
a
the
proper health care in the
Biden
military.
letting
So
Trump
don't tell
talk
me
over
about
I'm happy
this.
to talk about
And if
this.
you were
Oh,
here,
hell yeah.
it would
Cross
be
your mouth.
200. It would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected.
Where's
You didn't
my-
want me to
China?
ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr.
infected.
President,
China.
You would have been
Mr.
much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
Much later.
Mr. President,
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not
Mr.
gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
the
him up.
moderator,
Million.
We are going to talk about COVID.
Does that
in the
count
next
for
segment,
China
but
virus?
Go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
it's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court.
I'm not
There's
going
nothing happening.
Sounds like
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
moment?
like
view
he's like, "You're
on
wrong,
Roe
you're
v.
wrong."
Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So
He's
on
already
healthcare,
dying.
and then we'll come back to Roe v.
Yep.
Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Good non-existent
Over,
health care.
the last 4
No.
years, you have
Less healthcare is better.
promised to repeal and
No
replace
healthcare.
Obamacare, but you have
No.
never
You
in
can
these
pay
4
for it all
years
out of your
come up
pocket.
with a plan,
No government.
a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid
an
of the
opportunity.
individual
When I finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of
rid of the
Obamacare. What do you
individual
mean?
mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
Obamacare. That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I-
worst
I
part of
didn't ask-
Obamacare.
I made millions of
Chris,
people
that was
lose
the
their
worst
health
part of
insurance.
Let me
Obamacare.
ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
I
The
know.
individual
let me
mandate
ask
was
you-
the most
ask questions.
unpopular
Mr. President,
let me ask
aspect of
questions.
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like you
and
to,
we will
Mr.
protect people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator
He's
of
just
this
going
debate.
off on the moderator.
I'd like you to let me ask my question.
I am
and
the
then you can
moderator of
answer.
this
Go ahead.
country.
You, in the course
There
of these
was a
4 years,
bingo
have never
slot.
come
He
up
goes,
with a comprehensive
Wallace,
plan
shut the fuck up.
to replace
What are you gonna do?
Obamacare. And just this last Thursday, you signed a
you the
largely
president?
symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing
True.
conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Well,
I
first of all, I
am
guess I'm
eating garlic
debating you,
bread,
not him, but that's okay.
some,
I'm not
like,
surprised. Let me just tell you
mashed
something.
potatoes,
There's nothing symbolic.
roasted
Hey,
vegetables.
for
Cutting
the
drug
record,
prices,
in the
I'm
title,
going
I
with
put
favored
Trump and
nations,
Biden
which no
argue with a
president has the
gaping
courage
Wallace.
to do because you're going
So,
against big pharma.
I'm already
Drug
pretty
prices
accurate.
will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've
We're
done.
cutting
I'll
health
give
care?
you an example. Insulin. It's going
That's what he
it
said,
was
we're cutting
destroying
health care.
families, destroying
Right.
people. The
Quote.
cost. I'm getting it for so cheap. It's
What is
like
Trump's
water.
healthcare
You want to
plan?
know
We're
the
cutting
truth.
health-
So cheap. Take a look
Water.
at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go
It's
to
so
other
cheap, we're
countries
putting
to
water
buy
in
drugs
vials
because
and
when
selling
they
it as
pay just a
insulin.
tiny
As I
fraction.
say, this is open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about
legal.
Let me-
This
you'll
is
be
big
happy,
stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument that he makes, and other Republicans make, is that that is going
Joe
to
Biden
end
would like
private
to.
insurance.
That doesn't mean he's going to
and
do
will-
anything.
I can ask you the question. It will
Not what your
end.
party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are
That's
so
exactly-
poor they qualify for
We
Medicaid.
want Medicare for all. That's right,
They can
Trump.
get that free.
Thank you.
In most states, except
You should have
governors
said
who
it.
want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option.
Stutters.
The vast
Should have
majority of the
stutters on
American
there.
people would still
Nah, that was
not be
expected, though.
in that
I know, but
option.
just-
Number one.
Joe,
The
you
vast-
agreed
so it's
with Bernie
ineffective.
Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left on the manifesto,
when
we
you-
call it.
when
and that
manifesto-
gives you
The
socialized medicine. Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going
didn't
to listen
agree?
to him. The
Joe
fact of the
Biden is
matter
working
is-
for
Bernie Sanders,
Bernie
Communist
Sanders.
Manifesto.
Not much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Does that
I'm here
count as
standing
Joe
facing
Biden
you.
voting?
all buddy.
Pocahontas would have
left?
left 2 days early. You would have lost every
Damn,
part.
how-
All knows how to
Pocahontas
do
was
it.
Yeah, we
very
should
lucky.
cut that
Look,
one off.
very
Here's
lucky.
the
I
deal.
know, we needed a
I got very
Pocahontas
lucky,
on
and
the
get very
board.
lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure because
With what?
here's the deal.
That one
Here's the
counts,
deal.
Carlos?
The fact is that everything
For
he's saying
which
so
one?
far is simply a
Joe
lie.
Biden is working
I'm not
with
here
the
to call
radical
out
left.
his lies. Everybody knows he's a
right.
liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to make sure.
Joe,
Oh, yeah, huh?
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class.
I-
the first
Oh,
time.
shit. I've already got
wanna
3 in a
make
row.
sure-
President, can you let him
I
finish?
was chill.
He doesn't know how to do that.
Wait, lined up?
He has.
Shit.
You picked
Be
I'm on the
the wrong guy, the
diagonal.
wrong night at the
Ooh.
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him-
There is no manifesto. Number
Please let
one.
him speak, Mr.
Number two.
The manifesto.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
Folks,
absolutely
folks, do you have any idea what this mom's doing?
Socialized medicine.
Now
Mr. President,
Trump's full of shit.
He is not
Biden never
for
agreed to Medicare for all.
Yeah.
for people needing health care. Because
Bernie?
Trying to time to the
he,
radical
in fact,
left?
already has cost 10 million
Just say
people
Antifa.
their health
We need
care
Antifa.
that they had
Give
from
me this
employers
Antifa
because
on
of
the
his
board.
recession. Number one. Number
Oh,
two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people
Yeah.
getting health care through Obamacare
Listen,
now,
Jack.
but he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has
I already got rid of it.
done
I got
a
rid of
You
it.
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the
It's
same
no good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president. Go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good.
Let the
We made it
president
better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took
Trump
away
is
the
definitely
individual
pulling the
mandate.
Bill O'Reilly
We
here.
guarantee
Just speak over
pre-existing
him as much as
conditions,
you
but
can.
took away the
Pretty
individual
good.
mandate.
Yeah, that's exactly the
Listen, this is
Riley
the way
technique.
it is. And that destroyed
O'Reilly technique.
that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a
Just
choice to
speak
make. Do I
louder.
let my people run it really well?
My people,
badly?
let my
If I
people
badly,
run
They'll
it.
probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay? I said you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and I
known
just
for.
had
You're
a meeting
gonna
with
run
them.
it
They said
so
the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what his
So
people
we
said.
do want to
No,
get
no.
rid of it.
It's an
Chris, we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give-
it's
What a
but I
weak
have
vote.
to, I have
That's
to
what
give
his
you roughly
people
equal
said.
time.
Good.
Please
Why don't you say
let
it's
the
not
vice
true?
president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders. That have
Please,
no
I beg you,
power.
sir.
He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost
YouTube
everything
poop
else he
debate
talks
that was
about.
going on.
He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about
We'll
ending
use
the
suicide
filibuster
bomb the Supreme
or even
Court.
packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever
You want me
position
to
I take on
bust
that,
on
that'll
you?
become the issue.
What
The
is
issue
that?
is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how
you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know.
He doesn't
you're
wanna answer.
All right, I
senators.
got the bingo
I'm not
board
going to
up
answer the
now.
question
Why
because,
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
There's a
is
lot of
the
Yeah, I got
question
mine
is-
up
just
on
as
it.
the
radical
question-
left.
Would
So
you
people can
shut
see
up,
what the
man?
questions
Who's on
are
your
that we
list,
have.
Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so,
list?
All right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
We're
ended.
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a
Entered
productive segment.
The
wasn't it?
Twilight Zone.
Keep it up, man. The people
That was
understand.
weird.
They sure did.
47 years, you've
Carlos,
done
can you put
nothing.
it
They
over
understand.
All
the
right.
C-SPAN too?
The second
instead, so we
subject
can get the
is
question?
Yeah, that's a
COVID-19,
better
which
place
is an
to put
awfully
it.
serious
All right.
subject. So let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question
I
goes
can do more
to you
push-ups.
first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States.
200 million days.
We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population.
He just starts
20%
reading
of
the
deaths.
fucking
40
Halo 3 campaign story, like
contracting
the
COVID.
flood have
In
arrived.
addition to that, about between
you were going with
750
the
and
Halo
1,000
theme
people a day are dying.
Oh, God.
When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. True. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us.
I think he did just say wrong.
What did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
That was pre-written as fuck.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China.
Virus? No.
You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think we should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press. Fake news. It's fake news. Bingo. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job.
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu.
Got a greater than H1N1.
You were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was
no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no one. We didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people. And you would have been.
And by the way,
your own
his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine. We're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay.
No, I don't trust him. I don't trust him.
You don't trust Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer.
Johnson & Johnson just settled the case for $4 billion for opioid overdoses.
Either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last,
it came out to only $10,000 per person who died.
Said it would be
that's how much
Johnson
values life.
The vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Two away from getting a bingo.
Dr. Slawi, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives.
God.
It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We
all
have
of the pharmaceutical
Moderna,
companies.
Johnson & Johnson, and
I spoke
others.
to all the
They can
overlords,
go faster than
all
that
the
by a
oligarchs,
lot.
and they told me.
Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking
after
about when it's
that.
generally available. not when it
Well,
will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe
Well,
if
Joe
you did
Biden's
just
kind of
somebody else,
lying
not gonna
because
take
all
care
these
of it.
other
This is
countries
the
are
same
still
thing.
dealing with it.
sarcastically,
That was
you
him.
know that.
I
That was
just-
said
So what
sarcastically.
So here's the deal. This man
I was
is
just
talking
being
about
sarcastic.
vaccine. Every serious
got
serious
you.
company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up
Joe
on this
Biden would
question.
give
though.
everybody
You say the
healthcare so
public
we can treat everyone
can trust
for
the
coronavirus?
scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No. You can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists. There's
I
thousands of
wouldn't do
scientists
that.
out
I'd
there,
never do that.
like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart?
No, I hate the left more.
So
No,
you
I
said
hate
you
the
went
left.
to Delaware State,
Trump
but
was
you
like,
forgot
yes.
the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
Damn.
Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know
Jeez,
what?
dude.
There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done
Oh
Let's have
nothing.
this
my
debate.
And if you would have
gosh.
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
Listen
if
here,
you would have
Jack.
had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close
Biden
the
had-
greatest
or
economy in the history of our
fucking-
country.
you
And
just
by the
let
way, now
Trump
it's
talk
being
over
built
him.
again.
See,
And
he's
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to
When
doing
When
Okay.
it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect
I
how
got
the
that
virus
done.
is handled going
Feel
forward
good, man.
by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I'd know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
On the one board, if we had
Nancy
Nancy Pelosi.
And
she would've
by the
been-
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet him in the Senate. And he sits in his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play more than I do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a great thing by shutting it down. Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second.
Let me shut you down.
He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't.
My friend.
Even younger people aren't.
Yeah,
we've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a political
Those
states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
Respond to that.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy?
are
all these questions.
I understand. If you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
He always
I will say
Vice President Biden.
He's got his invisible mask on.
The way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open.
That Bane
We
laugh.
provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said that.
What's the opposite?
No
don't wear it, people die?
Dr. Fauci said
That's
that.
We got
He said very
more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks
Best.
are okay with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned.
Well, that double
President
speak
Trump,
there
you're
is
holding
masks are
large
not good.
rallies
I am not
with
fighting
crowds
masks.
packed together,
I'm not against
thousands of
masks.
people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir.
Double
Agreed.
plus ungood.
Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Nobody will show up.
there.
people with
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done
worried
a great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports.
30,000
We use
people.
airports.
Are you not
Yeah,
worried about
right.
the
We have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far, we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35,000, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly,
40,000?
move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible
That's how you
in the
do
way in
it.
which he has handled
25, 30,
the social
35,
distancing
40?
and people
50?
wearing masks, basically encouraging
Do I
them
hear
not to.
50?
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states
or
up.
none of them.
When you look
do
at
nothing.
North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege.
Open it up.
Pennsylvania,
so you can do whatever.
Michigan, and a couple of others. You got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost like being in prison.
Once, bro.
And you look at what's going on with divorce. Look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. He'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country.
Well, last
our
I
country
remember,
is coming
divorce
back
and
incredibly
alcohol
well,
abuse was
setting
up
records
right now.
as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped.
The fact of the matter is, give me a
What's
baby.
the difference?
I meant to say it was up under Trump before the pandemic.
Like him, in the middle of the COVID crisis,
and also after,
done very well. Another billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market.
Does that count as taxes? Or?
You folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America. How well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait,
there is taxes.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he is, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools. No, people want their schools open.
Chad,
they don't want to be shut down. They don't
though.
want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town, and I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York.
You want
people
the numbers to spike in New York again?
They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
all right,
people in Ohio are very proud
just
of
for the Cowboys to suck.
Gentlemen, we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report.
Can you bring the Raiders back to
2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax.
Well, either way, we
each
got
of
the
those
taxes
years.
from here.
I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific
well, plus
question.
that was one
Is it
for
true
Biden,
that you paid
so.
$750
I know you pay a lot of
in
other
federal
taxes,
income
but just
taxes
not federal
each
income
of those
tax.
2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars.
Not in
of
federal income tax.
And let me just tell you,
Yeah, sales
there was a
tax.
story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid
returns.
$38 million one year.
He
I
has.
paid $27 million
Show us your tax
one year.
returns.
I went.
Don't say that. Say
you'll
we've
see it as
seen
soon
the
as
tax
it's finished. You'll see it.
As
You know, if
soon
you
as
want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific
I'm being
question.
under
But let me tell you.
I understand all of that.
Wait, but what about the
I'm
$750 tax in
I'm
federal
asking you a
income
question.
tax?
Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not $750.
Federal
Millions of
income
dollars, and you'll
tax.
get to see it.
I-
And you'll get to see
when?
it. But let me just
Inshallah?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you
You'll
something.
see
that
it.
It was the tax laws.
You'll see
I
it
don't
when
wanna
I'm
pay
dead.
Tax. Before I came here, I
You
was a private
fucking
developer. I was a
bums.
private business people. Like every other private person, unless
Business
they're stupid,
people.
I was
they
business
go through
people.
the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
That is Obama, I guess. Yeah.
Look, the tax code that made him
Obama.
put him in a position that he
Trump's
pays less
Obama.
tax than a school teacher make.
I really could have used the
than
my
a school
boss
teacher makes,
more.
Is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't
Why didn't you do it over
because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years?
screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in
There it is.
in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in
no,
47
come on,
years.
man.
Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing,
Okay.
including
Gentlemen,
fixing the broken
yeah, we need the
military that
full-
you gave me, including taking care of your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president,
I got that
focuses
done.
a lot on big government, big taxes,
This is a perfect
big spending.
time.
I want to focus first on the taxes.
Matter of fact-
You propose more
matter of
than
fact, I got
$4
that
trillion
done, Jack.
over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my
Funny how none of
economic
these
plan
questions are
would
even
create
questions. They're
7
just like
million more jobs. for his
jumbled
employees,
fucking
number one.
assumptions.
And number
of
two,
They're just
it
random
would create
statements.
an additional $1
Yeah,
trillion
it's like, what are you
in
even
economic
saying?
growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make, the federal government spends $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that
$5 trillion
every
to Wall
penny of
Street,
that
less than $1
has to be
billion for
made
infrastructure.
by
Got it.
a company
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about
Less than
taxes,
$1 trillion,
not
I mean.
spending.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
I wanted to pay 2 pennies.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Goddamn.
You, in fact,
They need to pay a whole 2 pennies.
was
Those
your tax
fucking
proposal.
I got it done.
scammers.
And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And
like it's never boomed
The economy
Well,
is
Boom.
Mr. President,
And then it
let me-
fucking
let me-
exploded.
Mr. President, let me
Now,
pick up
are
on
you
that.
ready for the bust?
Would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more
I'm ready for the
deregulation, correct?
not lower taxes for American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy.
No
booming.
American person?
It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that
wasn't
means
that the
jobs.
strongest
It also
recovery
means
ever?
401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
booming.
Blew it.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when, in fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two. Chris. Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that
totally gave up on manufacturing.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone.
I got that done.
And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having that.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out.
There it is.
He takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it?
That was a big one.
What did he do with Marissa?
Oh, no, I've got one more.
$3,000.
Oh, shit. If Joe Biden talks about his wife or his sister.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
No, it's too likely.
Mr. President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month? With no experience in energy?
God damn, dude.
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President,
he doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
He got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job.
You're fired.
Go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just tell you.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we can talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a...
Mr. President.
Every single one of them lost a fortune.
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family. The American people. He doesn't... That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need.
It doesn't want to
the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well, Vice President,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be honest.
He stood up.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that
get rid
is
of
absolutely not true.
You're going to have
true.
Gentlemen.
Chris Wallace.
I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race.
Told him
if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
They're not fucking saying anything anyway, and they don't realize it.
Well, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you
or my boss
to launch this run for president.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
well, because my boss is just anything Obama.
Trump, you
so
have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people looked like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now, second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
I did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's just 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have excuse me, Portland, the sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency.
I'm going to talk to the police. I'm going to talk to people doing the problem, and
to George
yeah, they're going to stop.
These cops aren't happy to see what happened.
Just like Hillary Clinton talked to Wall Street, and they
stopped
messing around.
But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
what is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not asking.
But you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race.
Please.
I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas, and frankly, very sick ideas.
Instinctually has a bad effect on
they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
He's racist.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends
look down on so many people. Do you think anyone grows up with a sense of self-esteem?
They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat
the soul of America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama
we can deport millions if we just do it together. There was
tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson. You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
the reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in favor of law and order? Go ahead.
You asked a question. Let him finish.
Law and order.
My law, my order.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 70%, 15% in our administration. It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in ours.
All right, we're
boys, I'm so close.
President, you're going to.
I need my boss.
Every record in the
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble with Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Not our suburbs.
He would not.
I'd like to see numbers on how much of the rioting and looting actually happens in the suburbs.
This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do it. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about,
he mentioned
quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police offices. As a matter of fact,
garbage.
The only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement support.
That's not true.
Almost nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Look,
think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Think
all right.
We have time.
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee,
Should they
and
be
earlier tonight you
executed?
said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the
Antifa,
leaders
come on.
in Portland and in Oregon to
Because
bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can
Knock
in fact,
off? What
take
does that
care of it if you
mean?
just stay out of the
Yeah.
way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
Here's the thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get
Knock
the
off
killer
those
of that young
people.
man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his
Carlson,
own
I vote
former
for the my boss
spokesperson
here.
said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that.
don't
And so here's the
All right.
But here's the point.
Go
The
ahead,
point
sir.
is that that's what he keeps trying to
Yeah, let me
rile
cite
everything up.
Kellyanne
He doesn't
Conway.
want to calm things down.
This is the
Instead
first
of
person you
going
can think
in
of.
and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this.
Come on, man.
What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait,
criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
You have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
No,
second.
you've been talking back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking
Stop
you.
asking
no,
me
you know,
questions.
sir,
I would love to end it, and
you know,
we
if
would
you want to
very
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no.
in the
Really?
National
Can I-
Guard. It
We
would
can
be
do
over.
that.
There'd be no
We can get
problem.
that done very
I don't want
quickly.
to accept the National Guard.
Wait,
You
wait,
have
they become the
repeatedly
mafia?
criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing
Antifa.
tonight to condemn
Come on,
white
Trump, say it.
supremacists
Say it.
and militia
Say it. The
groups
word
and
Antifa.
to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Come on.
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
do it? Well,
I
go
would
ahead.
say,
Senator.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
I'm willing to do
Say
anything.
say
What do you wanna call
Antifa.
it? Give
Say
me a name. Give me a
Antifa.
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right-wing
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa
Yes.
and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This
go.
is a left.
FBI director
This
said,
is a
"What's
left
that?
wing.
What do you call out the Proud
The
Boys?
left.
But he just
Antifa is an
blasted.
idea, not
left.
an organization,
The left.
not militia. That's what his
It's an idea.
FBI,
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're
Everybody-
moving on to the next
everybody
one.
We're done.
in
We're
your
done.
That's my boss.
That's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth is a bad
Antifa
idea.
is
I tell you
bad.
what,
No ideas that are
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question.
Don't
When the
overthrow
president seeks a
you.
second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite
said
going
it.
through all
Hillary
these
Clinton?
things where I had to fight
Oh my
both flanks
God.
and behind me and above.
I knew this is how it was
There
gonna
has
go.
never been an administration that's done what I've done.
final round.
The greatest, before COVID came
I'm
in, the
on
greatest
one. I
economy
just
in
need your
history,
fire.
lowest unemployment
No,
numbers.
that might be a
Everything
hard
was
one to
good.
get.
Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity
My
going
boss
to
would be
happen.
huge
People
right
were
now.
calling me for the first time in years. They were calling And they were saying it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you, because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term, 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession.
I made the left go to sleep.
I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker.
Come on, man.
The fact is that I've gone head-to-head with
the stock market was booming under Obama.
We're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppet. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed that both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it. And why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before.
The home, you got
in terms of being more violent. When we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there.
My boss.
He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal.
And Iraq is still happening.
He was not a loser. He was a patriot. And the people left behind there
what's he going to say?
heroes.
What's he going to say?
And I resent
You're talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter.
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden.
I know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
Right now.
He
My
made
son,
a fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
given
tens of millions
All right,
of
but he
dollars?
wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally, President Trump.
We've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
Gets $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about not true.
Gentlemen,
that report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know,
shut the fuck
I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced
13 minutes for
hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think
only the
science
question
knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management. What
do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting.
You believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of the rock?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management,
it doesn't matter if you clean the forest if the air is
in
dry.
Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain
and the trees that are still in the ground burn.
I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest.
Does this guy think that living trees don't catch on fire or something?
That are far more. They ignite much easier than California.
There shouldn't
be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor.
Because of the CO2 in the atmosphere.
You can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change,
we're poorly
why have you
managing
rolled
our
back
carbon
the
output?
Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars?
Me and my boss.
Really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored
but you would take a lot of cars
roadmap
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits
$5
on
trillion
fracking,
for Wall Street,
ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong.
They subsidize the whole stock market.
Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles, making sure that we can do that. We're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability of us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, make sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building. No, it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right?
I got that done.
This is a $100 trillion. That's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going to
the case. All right, let me destroy our country. Wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes.
So
the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
You're going to do like a test project?
It's going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Thousands of millions.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Chris, so why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
that is
not
$20 billion. My plan.
That's
the Green New
you want to rebuild every
is
building.
Not my plan.
I want to rebuild every
building.
He made a statement about the military. He said I said something about the military.
I am not a
He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is
you're
he
done in
said
this segment.
he called the military
stupid
bastards.
I
and
did
he said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said stupid bastards.
Please,
he said it.
Stop.
I would never say that.
Stop.
No. They're fools and idiots.
Vice President
Stupid bastards one
answered
came up.
his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all is ranting.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are
Wait,
great
but he's not
polluting plants.
supporting it?
The Green New Deal?
Yeah, what?
Pardon me?
You support it?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
It's going to pay for it.
Well, that's a big statement.
I support the
I
support the Biden
You support the
that
thing
I
that
put
pays for
forward.
itself.
The
No.
Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New
Unreal.
Deal.
All right, gentlemen,
Holy
final
shit.
segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some
God, I'm
ballots,
still laughing
mail-in
over
ballots
that
after Election Day. What
Yeah,
are
it was
you
pretty bad.
prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
I
Prepared to
won.
let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID
people have
that are
lots
going
of
to be
trust in the
voting by
FBI.
mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote
Don't
in
worry,
person.
Joe Biden,
Vote
I'll
whatever
be
way is the
voting
best
for
way for
Jesse
you.
Ventura.
Because you will. He cannot stop you from being able to determine
Don't worry,
the
I got
outcome of
you.
this election.
I'm voting.
And in terms of whether or not when the votes are
I'm not
counted
voting
and they're
for
all
you.
counted,
not
that will
voting
be
for Trump.
accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition,
Do you want
there's been
Trump's
no
lies or
transition
Joe's
from when I
lies?
won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign.
They
started
coup
from
me.
the day I won and even before I won. From the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady, they were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots.
Wait. No, so is he arguing for better tracking of ballots in the election?
It's nice. On November 3rd, you watch it
I agree
and you
with
see
that.
who won the election.
I think there are
I think
tons
we're
of
gonna
ballots
do well
being getting
because
rid of.
people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter, of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them.
The Supreme Court will directly count the ballots.
But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to do
them out
about
left
it? There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out right now.
What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited
like
ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go and vote. You go and vote.
But
like
what I'm
they,
saying is,
like they used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is not going to end well.
Where do I go pick up these ballots?
This is not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by Election Day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows the outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this. Vice President Biden.
He's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you, that is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots sending and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been
fraud.
Now, mail service delivers 185 million pieces of mail a day.
In 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing.
If you don't
they were
support
thrown
Trump,
out.
I want
they
you
weren't
out of
allowed
there.
to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia. Bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one.
I'm
Number
not going
two,
to equip
they cheat.
these people to handle it.
They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm?
Wait, they put
the name,
they put their name Donald Trump on the ballot?
Not to declare victory until the election is independently certified.
Yes, and here's the deal. They count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome.
If it's Jesse Ventura, will you support the outcome?
Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy...
What if a third party wins?
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
What if nobody wants?
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on.
You always have another option.
President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch.
I thought Mike Pence can't be in the same room with a woman.
And good night.
Does Mike Pence have to stand 20 feet away?
Thank you.
You're fired.
Well, I guess now that the debate is over, you never introduce yourself, Josh. You've been here the whole time.
Yes. I was going to introduce myself, but I was muted, and I was also playing Avengers. Hello, I am one of the viewers of the podcast. I'm here normally in the chat. I don't really pop up. I don't have a political preference, and I'm not a very political person like my colleagues here. But yeah, I'm usually in the chat. I'm Hugly. I stream sometimes. That's about it.
Well, look at that. You got 2 choices. You can support Trump or you can support Biden.
Yeah, nobody else.
That sounds like what voting is all about.
Let's see. I'm gonna go over the other bingo cards. I want to see if there was any possibility of getting a bingo from what we got scrambled.
All right.
So what were the numbers that were taken?
Oh. Let's see. Here, I'll put it back on this for now.
We had 3 was Eian, right? Close that. 3 was Eian. Yeah, okay. So Eian did not get 1. I'm pretty sure they didn't have anything. Yeah, they didn't really have anything, so...
There we go.
Who has joined the domain? It is Ian Brown.
The host has come back. Don't worry, folks.
I'm gonna kill myself.
You have to speak up, sir. Oh, he's already gone. Our dear leader has abandoned us.
Oh my God, Carlos.
Whoops, I forgot to add some X's.
How many X's were there? I was going off of yours.
A lot of them, sorry.
Oh.
Here. There you go.
Okay, I got that one. 3, 6. Okay, yeah, 11. I just found out that if anyone picked number 1, they would have got the diagonal, like right off the bat.
Huh.
They would have got. Fact of the matter is, China virus or fake news, freedom, free one, wrong, and taxes. But that one. Actually. That one, yeah. So if anyone chose number 1 card, they would have gotten it. They almost got it on number 2. Oh. Put me. So is there any plans for doing this next debate?
We might do this same thing again. Hopefully we can get the rest of the people on. Jacan had to go. What was that?
When is the next debate?
I don't think it's till mid-October, I think. Or the vice presidential one is towards, I think it's the 7th. I thought it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
We could maybe do some kind of a revised version next time or something. We'll see.
So, all I know so far is that if anyone chose number 1, they would have gotten it.
Huh. Well, I guess unfortunately we all lucked out.
Yeah.
No drinking for anyone.
I guess that's a good thing. Now, if we were to play it the other way, if we were to do shots every time there was a check mark,
oh boy,
then that would have been 11 shots.
Maybe we could do it like that next time, but we could just make the squares more absurd.
Yeah.
So we could just have so we could just go by like the whole board and not go for like bingo or anything. And just have, like, wackier stuff. And make it even more fun if they do say it.
Yeah. And if there is a bingo, you have to take, like a hard shot.
I guess it would definitely make it more of a group kind of event, though, because everyone would have to take a shot together.
That's true. True.
But I think it'd be more fun to try to do it that way, because at least we'd drink once.
What would it be?
Hopefully.
What's the Twitch guidelines on that?
Well, if we're not drinking on camera, I mean, who knows?
That's true. But I thought, like, in the event that we did do this in a group effort, not like online, like how you guys did the 9/11 get together one.
Nah, I don't think we're gonna do that.
Okay. Well, yeah, as long as I guess we're not on camera. I don't know what the Twitch guidelines are on that.
I've definitely seen streams of people drinking. Whether Twitch allows it or not, I've...
As long as there's no guns fired.
Well, I mean, everyone that was at Jacan's was drinking. So.
That's true.
But, oh well. So, I guess I'll kind of end this off here. Thank you everyone for watching. Glad if anyone decided to tune in and take a watch with us. Thank you, and hopefully you're able to tolerate this shit show. And I think we'll probably be back for maybe the vice presidential debate and the next two. So you can definitely suffer along with us some more. Alright, hope everyone has a good night and can take care. And we'll be seeing everyone hopefully tomorrow. We should be having a guest coming on. We still need to coordinate that and get everything together, so stay tuned.
Not me, by the way.
Yeah, that's not Josh don't have anything to do with that. But until then, hopefully everyone tunes in tomorrow night. Should be same time, 10:30, and we'll definitely try to make it a good show for everyone. So hope everyone takes it easy.